Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where real estate meets real life skills. Hosted by Andrea Lane and Alyssa Bicar, each episode features investors turning their unique edge into long-term rental success.
Hello, welcome to the Built for This podcast. I'm your co-host, Alyssa Bicar, here with my partner in crime, Andrea Lane. She's the fearless real estate investor doing rental real estate for almost 50 years. We're super excited to introduce today's guest. Andrea, who do we have for him today?
So I am super excited today because Kris Fleming, thank you so much for joining us. She is not our normal mold for this podcast. And so it's very exciting because she got into real estate really young. She was 18 when she bought her first property and she was able to do creative work with it and build. And now she really moved and pivoted. So I'm really excited to hear more about your story, Kris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And I want to ask, because it doesn't matter if you are in the buy and hold or the rent or the different marketplaces in real estate. I love real estate because there's so much to do. Why do you love real estate?
Oh, I agree. Because there are so many different ways to approach it and so many different ways to use your own talents and strengths in the real estate field. Additionally, I love real estate because I've spent a lifetime studying the first generation wealthy, and real estate is a tool that is used very, very often for people who were not born wealthy to become wealthy.
100%. So I'm going to ask you a little change up from what we do. What do you do? How did you grow this business? How did you pivot? What did you start with? And where are you heading now? Because it's a really interesting story.
And we're going to ask you more of those questions along the way, so you don't have to have the whole script.
Yeah, exactly. But I loved it. I loved it. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in extreme poverty, homelessness, homeless shelters, foster care, children's homes, and lots of time living in cars. So when I aged out of foster care and I turned 18, I left California and moved to Tennessee for no reason other than it was just really far away. I was actually technically a teen runaway when I got here. I left a week before my 18th birthday. So I moved to Tennessee, and when I started seeing home for sale signs, and I was just curious, and I called on one and I went and looked at it and I said, "You mean I get the whole thing for that price? The whole thing? And nobody can make me leave. I get to have my own home where nobody's knocking on the window in the middle of the night and says, you can't sleep here, hun." So yeah, I bought my first house about 6 months after my 18th birthday, lived in it for about 2.5 years, and then had an opportunity to make a transition that would help me make a little more money. And so I wound up selling that house on a lease option because that's how the people who wanted the house, that was a way that was doable for them to acquire it. So that's how I sold that house.
Wow. Okay. So mind blown. Head full of steam, moves across the country, finds a for sale house and says, "I want to live here," and made it work. Like, this is like the genesis story. Like, I kind of want to hear the rest of it. So you bought a house, then you sold it on terms, and then what did you do next? Like, how does this story unfold? I'm like waiting with bated breath to hear the rest of it.
Well, fast forward about maybe 15 years, actually. So we'll fast forward about 15 years. I was going through a divorce, and by that time I had 3 daughters, going through a divorce, and my daughters, my oldest 2, were middle school age. And there was a particular neighborhood where all of their friends lived. It was an HOA neighborhood with a really nice resort style pool and walking trails and all the, I mean, things I would have only dreamed of as a child. Um, and so my kids really wanted to live in this neighborhood. I needed a new place to live, but I knew I couldn't afford this neighborhood. So I said, okay, well, we'll just drive around and look and see what we see. And as I was driving around, I saw a property that, one of these things is not like the others. And it was a little less attractive. There was a sign in the yard that said for sale by owner, and it wasn't actually even standing up. It was laying down in the yard. So I called, and the gentleman who answered the phone said, "Oh, yeah, I just acquired this property. You're calling at the perfect time. I'm about to do this and that and the other thing, and you get to pick out your colors. We'll make it just like you want it." And I said, "Well, what do you plan to ask for it after you do all that?" And he gave me a number. And then I said, "Well, what will you take for it as is?" And I'll never forget his reaction. He said, "As is." And I said, "Yeah, I can't afford it after you do all the things to it. So will you sell it to me just like it is right now?" And he gave me a number, and I said, "Great." And then I offered him a lower number.
The gumption on this one. Mm-hmm.
I said, "Yeah, that's a great number, but I can't quite do that one. Can you do this number?" And it was like $10,000 less. And he said, "Okay." And I said, "And can you still replace the carpet?" So he did. He actually did. My girls and I lived in that house for a good 3.5, 4 years. He had bought it the man who sold it to me bought it in foreclosure. He made about $10,000 or $15,000. This was in 2015. So he made about $10,000 or $15,000 just by owning the property for a couple of months and then turning around and selling it to me. So basically, he kind of wholetailed it, right? And then I lived in it, and I cleaned everything up and I made it pretty again, and I worked on the yard, made it my home. And then about 3.5 years later, sold it for nearly double what I had paid for it. Incidentally, that man and I are now still very good friends. At the end of that deal, he said, "The next time I'm at the negotiation table, I want you on my side of it." And we still do business together 10 years later.
How amazing is that? Like, so not only did you get the numbers and the experience of living there, you also you knew exactly what you wanted. And like, so here's the piece to me that really sings is that, you asked what his number was without fear of saying, if I don't have this number, then this isn't going to work for me. You were like, let me hear it. Okay, I can't do that with all the improvements. What about this next phase? And you came in and asked a second question. And even still at that point, you're like, I know my own number. And this is where a lot of real estate investors kind of get turned away or turned off. Oh, I can't make that number work. I'll go find something else. Mm-hmm. No, you said, you know what? Thank you. Also, this is what I can do and what I need in order to take this on. And you wound up bringing the price down, but he also still had a win-win. You had a win because you were living there. He did what you needed to do, and he still made money on the property. So like what I'm kind of opening up here is the fact that there's a lot of assumptions that we go into when we ask somebody a price. We assume that price is immovable. We assume that they already know that they can't go any lower, but it's a mindset shift to meet where your need is and find out if there's possibility. Andrea, over to you.
Yeah. So, the thing with most real estate, especially beginners, right? They're afraid to make a deal. Well, on the other side, agents don't want to work with investors because they do make offers. So either side is tough, right? Because, and I talked to investors last night. I was at agents last night. I was at an agent meeting, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you make offers that are ridiculous." And I said, "Well, I can explain my offer. I'll be happy to talk to the seller. Like, I have no problem with that." So you know what the number is for you. And you may have a different number than Alyssa for the same property. That's fine. But if you don't
Mhm.
make the offer, you don't know. You don't know what their needs are. And that's the other thing. It sounds like you're now working with him with, by the way, if you want to move to Pittsburgh, I'd be happy to have you help negotiate some deals. Really, because I'm coming back here for flips next year. That sounds like an opportunity for me. I don't know about for you. But yeah, because that is really a skill set that so many people need. And just make the offer that you think is right. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not saying to downplay offers just because you don't want to pay, but you make an offer that makes sense.
And that's the thing, you have to take the ego out of it. So I would love to learn more, Kris, about, how you kind of develop that skill set to have the confidence to have that conversation.
Oh goodness. Thank you. I do love to negotiate. Uh, I have had multiple friends take me along with them to buy cars because I really enjoy the negotiation process. How I developed that skill set, I guess I just always figure the worst that could happen is somebody says no. That's the worst thing. So if you don't ask, it's already no. So
Mm.
it literally cannot get worse than the situation you have right now. Because if you don't ask, it's already no. So
I,
yeah, what's the harm in asking?
I love that attitude. That is so perfect because you're absolutely right. If you don't ask, you don't know. And I know that I have put offers on properties, right, that I thought were reasonable. And they're like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, this isn't going to work for me. And then I come back 30 days later with a less offer. They're in a position that they want to sell, and I get the property for even less. So you're so spot on. I love that.
And you know what? I want to just echo what you said too, that you came back 30 days later with a lower offer and they say yes. That's the other part of it is I never think that no means no forever. It just means not right now. It could be yes this afternoon or yes in 30 days, but it's not no. The answer is no right now. So that doesn't mean I'm going to stop asking if it's something I'm really interested in and I see a lot of opportunity in. So I
I
love that
agree.
you shared that.
The only time the answer is no is when they sell. Then it's no because it's gone and you can go to the next seller. But if they haven't sold that property, follow up is key for so many deals that I've done. So yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
I just
Yes.
I love the way you wiggle and shaped. But now you actually are moving even in a different direction, right? You continue to do you continue to move, which I love the strategy. You stay in a house and you fix the house up and then you find a new house, right?
You sell it for
Yes.
Talk
double.
about how
That
that
sounds
works.
awesome.
Right? Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Um, I have had a lot of people tell me that I'm crazy for constantly living in a construction zone. It doesn't bother me. I enjoy the process, but yes, we are currently, my husband is living in his first live-in fix. We've been married 4 years as of 2 days ago was our wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But this is my sixth live-in fix. And the thing with that is I love to buy the properties that nobody else wants. Number one, I can get them, very inexpensively in comparison to the ones that everybody does want. But number two, I get to make them my own. I don't have to live with the design decisions that someone else has made. I get to make them my own. And then, of course, I have the homestead exemption where I don't have to pay income taxes on capital gains up to now $500,000 since I snagged a husband. I get to use his exemption too.
I I love not paying taxes, and I love that you're using the system to work for you and generate more
Mhm.
wealth that you can buy properties, make notes, live and have a fun life, right? Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great.
I oh
Absolutely.
girl. Yeah, now that I snagged a husband, I can make 500K in a house. Listen, we need to hang out more. I'm just saying. So
I
what
agree.
I'm hearing that I'm curious more about is
Uh-huh.
you are in your sixth live and
Mhm.
fix. how does that compare, properties 2 through 5? How does that compare with your first experience? Can you kind of share some progression of how that's worked for you along the way?
Oh, I've certainly become bolder in what I'm willing to do,
Very
for
more.
sure. Yeah, well, I mean, the first one was, the first one when I was 18, it was really just clean it up and paint it. The second one 10 years ago, um, yeah, well, maybe that was, anyway. The one in 2015 that really stands out in my mind is, again, that was basically painting and some flooring and, just making staging. The third one was kitchen renovation and bathroom renovation and gut and moving walls. This one now, as I progressed, this one is a whole addition. And we started with flooring before we even moved in. And yeah, we've added 400 square feet. It was built in 1920. It was a Sears and Roebuck catalog house. So that's super fun. I remember when we were doing the flooring, the contractors were saying, it's really hard to do because nothing's square. And I said, well, they hadn't invented the square yet. They just finished the circle when this house was built in 1920. So yeah, nothing is square, but taking on would I have in my first couple have taken on moving walls and adding square footage and really um, modifying the footprint of the structure? Absolutely not. I would not have done that. And I'm not suggesting that others shouldn't. I'm just saying I didn't have that confidence to do that at that time. And now, as I've progressed and done bolder and bolder and bolder designs, I I don't mind at all. I'm not thrown by that when people say, well, the contractors come out and they say, well, you've got to do this and this and this, and I go, right. So how much are you going to charge me for that? And okay, now will you take less?
I was on mute. So last night I was at a meeting, which I heard a guy, which I absolutely loved. He now buys houses and he decides what he's going to put into them. And he walks through the house with the contractor and he says, I'm willing to pay $40,000. What can you do for me?
Oh, I love that
Love
approach.
it. It was like, oh my goodness, a whole new mindset. So yeah. So
Yeah. I
as
love that. What can I get for this amount of money? That's fantastic.
right? I mean, you know what you want to spend, and you know the house will
Yeah.
work with that amount spent in it. So let the contractor tell you what he can do for that.
And if I may interject,
Yeah.
I would love for your audience to know, as they're getting into fix and flip and real estate and changing properties, I would love for them to know that the ability to visualize a finished product before you've started is a skill set. Not everybody can do that. And I want them to know that if they're anxious about what they're going to do, they're already a couple of steps ahead because they can visualize that finished product before they ever get started.
I so have to agree with you because I can't visualize. I hate houses. I absolutely love real estate. I hate houses. Like when we moved in, I said, put the furniture down. When I die, you throw it out. I'm okay with that. The only thing we'll do is fix it when something breaks. Like I just, it's not my thing. I don't like houses. So when I go through a house, my partners have to say, oh, well, we should do this and we want to do this and this will make it look better because I don't see it. Like it's a place that you hang out,
Nice.
sleep. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. If you don't have that ability to see, that's where a good realtor can come in, even as an investor, and because they see what the market wants and they can see a house in a different view. So if you don't have that view, swapping it out is a great way of doing it. And you're absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that. So it's
Oh,
yeah.
and so being that we've heard your origin story and kind of what you love to do with your hands-on in your real estate investment
Yes.
business, because you have made it not only a lifestyle but also a business model for yourself, now proved
Mhm.
6 times over. Um, what is the rest of your real estate investment landscape look like, and what do you have coming up in the next 6 to 12 months, to be able to continue to grow and involve yourself in real estate investments in those other creative spaces?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that. Well, part of the reason that I do live in fix is because I'm so slow. I like to swing the hammer myself, but I'm very slow. So I can't afford to, have a vacant property for 3 years as I swing the hammer myself. I have to just live in it. It's not practical to do it otherwise. Um, I have had a few rentals post moving out of properties that I've lived in and repaired and then moved out. And I've discovered I'm incredibly bad at being a landlord because I give everything away. I have a little trouble when they say I don't have the rent this month. I have a little trouble saying, okay, well then you get to leave. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with my history of, nobody can make me leave. So I can't be a landlord. I'm very bad at it because I don't treat it like a business. I treat it like a nonprofit, and that's not a way to get wealthy. That's a way to be a nonprofit. So I joint venture with other people who are much wiser than I am in actually operating the property, and they can do the parts that I have found that I am unable to do. So let's see, I've got some capital partners that were in some development, single family home developments for affordable housing in the Chattanooga area. That will be 72 single family homes when that's done. And we are not in the syndication portion. We are in the operator portion where our capital helped to acquire the actual land, not the raising the capital for the syndication portion. Fun fact on that one, when I got the call looking for the capital to make that happen, the gentleman calling me said, well, this guy, he's big stuff and he's well known and he's this and he's that. So, I think you're asking for a bit much in exchange for your capital. And I said, he may be all of that, but you're calling me in a Target parking lot 2 days before Christmas. So, she who has the gold makes the rules. So I commanded not just a nice yield on those funds, but because it is a single family home development, I actually asked for one of the houses as part of the repayment. I get to choose a house that I want as part of the repayment. So yeah, I got paid back in a house. Um, so yeah, I joint venture. I'm in a couple of other properties with capital. What I like to do is, because I'm also in lending, I do a lot of DSCR lending. I recognize that when there is a business entity that owns real estate, typically anyone who owns that entity that has 20% or greater ownership in the business entity has to be a personal guarantor on a loan against that real estate. Well, I don't want to personally guarantee any loans. So I typically own 19% of the entity. So I'm not a personal guarantor on the loan. And then I have ownership in the property that somebody else operates, and I get checks.
So,
That's what I
so
like
I
to
love
do.
that 19%, by the way, because I am a more than 20% owner in most of my properties, and I don't really like that feature. But I also like the fact that you don't want to do the work, but you want to own the property. You know the value of real estate. You just don't want to
Mhm.
be in there worrying about that tenant, and you don't do that well. So you can still be a landowner without all the problems, right? I do JVs around the country, and some of them I'm active in, and some of them I'm not. And it really works well. So I love
Mhm.
that shift of the mindset that,
Mhm.
yeah, I can own property without owning the problems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, and it feels like we could have this conversation and continue on for hours. What I want to be sensitive to your time and to our listeners, what we will be doing here is inviting you back for a community event. So keep your eyes peeled for Kris Fleming being part of one of our community events where you can come and learn from her, but also ask some questions and be part of a panel. We do select a few people to like mastermind with us in that feature. So stay tuned. This is the Built for This podcast, real people doing real estate. And we're listening for where your proclivities lie that makes you successful, because success is determined on your own right. It's not something out there that you have to reach for. It's something you get to decide. And Kris embodies that full-heartedly in how she's built her real estate business and beyond. Thank you so much for being here with us, Kris. You've been an amazing guest. How can people find you if they want to learn more about you and connect?
Yeah, thank you so much. My company is called The Genius Cultivator because you're the genius and I help you grow. So it's thegeniuscultivator.com. Also, if you want to reach me directly, it's hello@krisfleming.net, KrisFleming. Hello@krisfleming.net. But yeah, thegeniuscultivator.com. Thank
Yeah.
you.
High five. This has been amazing. For those of you on the podcast, thank you for hanging in with us for this innovation of how we do this interview. We just could not pass up this type of conversation today. So stick around. Right after this, we have another amazing guest lined up for you. Don't go away.
This wraps another episode of Built for This. If you're a real estate investor with a unique edge, apply to join us at builtforthisshow.com/guest.